Hi guys, Matt here. This is video number 3 of the trauma series that we are doing, and it is healing from trauma. And because mental health issues and problems and trauma can be really complicated sometimes, the solutions and healing and help with those things usually requires a mix of a lot of different things. And so we're going to go over a bunch of those today. Number one is spiritual help, spiritual healing, spiritual help. Number one is God is the ultimate healer. And sometimes he works with instant miracles, but more often he works through prayer, his people, and in medical ways. For many, trauma is not just a vanishing act, but learning to live with and through pain, which cannot ultimately be denied, and to be willing to risk opening up to a change that will lead to a transfiguration. That's a really good quote that I saw. Part of spiritual healing also includes lament. And when human trust has eluded them, the traumatized desperately need an anchor, a point of reference, something or someone reliable in which to place their trust. We thus facilitate healing when we help the afflicted cry out their sorrow, rage, and tears to God. Prayers of lament, crying out to and for God for deliverance, seem to be faith's only alternative to despair. Instead of protecting themselves against the pain, the afflicted are encouraged to go down into it, clinging to God's promises as they do so. That is probably the best quote I've read on lament and spiritual healing and trauma that I've seen. So hope you guys like that. I think for all of us, a lot of times there isn't going to be a total healing of a lot of things until heaven, but there is a lot that we can do. So next one up is physical healing, and that starts with knowing what we feel is the first step toward understanding why we feel that way. And I think guys are particularly terrible at this because we can feel a whole lot of things and ignore them all. So how to change is label your feelings and what happens. For example, when I feel anxious, I feel my chest like being crushed. That's one I've heard from a ton of guys, and they think it's super abnormal, but it's actually really common. And I've heard it from 5+ guys probably in this group, that when they get a lot of anxiety, their chest tightens up. For real change to take place, the body needs to learn that, and this is talking about trauma, the body needs to learn that the danger has passed and they must live in the reality of the present. We all need to have physical and emotional safety, freedom from shame or judgment, and courage to face our reality. We must have an anchor. That anchor is most of the time social support. And in the book, The Body Keeps the Score, he says that social support should be the backbone of all prevention and treatment, which is huge. And this is literally the reason why this group exists, because guys a lot of times are terrible at social support and even terrible at friendship. And in understanding that it's the backbone of treatment for mental health, and the backbone of treatment for mental illness and critical for mental health is huge, because we have the power to help heal each other. Restoring relationships and community is essential to restoring well-being. Focused attunement with another person can shift us out of fearful and disorganized states. Becoming in tune with another person can literally help you become better mentally. Being able to feel safe with other people is probably the single most important aspect of mental health. So I think it's critical that you think about do you think you're a safe person for other people who are struggling, because we should all be doing that, because it's crucial. We recover in the context of relationships. We recover in AA meetings, at church, with therapists, with friends. Healing is always done in the context of relationships. So there's this crazy study done about kids on morphine that I want to talk about. Basically, the conclusion they came to was the security of the attachment of the kid to the mother predicted the amount of morphine needed for kids who were in the hospital for severe burns. The more secure the attachment, the less the painkiller was needed. And that's just awesome to me, that kids that are really close to their moms needed less painkiller, and so there's a huge psychological healing that comes along with that, and similar things can be done with each other. So next one up is cognitive behavioral therapy, and this is your traditional therapy that most therapists use. Therapy is a mutual exploration of yourself. If the main problem with PTSD is disassociation, the goal of treatment is association, integrating cut-off elements of trauma with your ongoing narrative of life. So the brain can recognize that was then and this is now. If you've been hurt, you need to acknowledge and name what happened to you. As long as you suppress and keep secrets, you're at war with yourself. And therapists can help you reframe those negative brain thoughts with facts. Psychological problems are not simply just brain diseases or disorders. They're adaptive and protective behaviors. And this is one of my pet peeves, is the fact that everyone always says that mental illnesses just come from a chemical imbalances in your brain, which is only partially true. They come from trauma, they come from chemical imbalances, they come from physical problems, they come from adaptive and learned behaviors that you learned to adapt to your surroundings, usually bad ones. Another one is journaling that most people know about. Writing about difficult events improves physical and mental health. Simply noticing what you feel fosters emotional regulation. So this is mindfulness and meditation. Mindfulness decreases activation of the amygdala, which increases control over our emotions. You can also regulate your physiology through breath and touch and movement. And I'm super impatient, and so I hate doing deep breathing, but it has been found to be critical to helping with anxiety and a whole lot of other things. So what's important